Welcome, car lovers. Does a masterpiece require a sequel, or does a second act merely serve to dilute the purity of the first? It is a question that has haunted the halls of the Louvre, the recording studios of Abbey Road, and now the clinical hushed laboratories of Toyota City. For over a decade, the Lexus LFA has stood alone, not merely as a high-performance vehicle, but as a singular moment of corporate madness. It was a car that should never have been built, born from a decade of obsessive development and a financial ledger that would make a seasoned accountant weep. Yet, it became the benchmark for what happens when a giant of industry decides to stop making sensible hatchbacks and starts chasing the soul of the machine. Now the whispers have turned into a dull roar. The rumors of a successor, an LFA II, have graduated from the realm of internet fantasy to the cold, hard reality of patent filings and testing mules. But as we stand on the precipice of this new era, we must ask ourselves, is Lexus building a monument to the future, or are they simply trying to bottle lightning for a second time in a world that has forgotten what thunder sounds like? To understand the weight resting on the shoulders of this new machine, one must first respect the lineage from which it descends. The original LFA was not a car designed by a committee looking at market segments and synergy. It was a passion project of Akio Toyoda, a man who understood that a brand without a heart is merely a manufacturer of appliances. They spent 10 years on it. They built it out of aluminum, realized it was too heavy, threw the entire project in the bin, and started again with carbon fiber. They commissioned Yamaha to tune the acoustic resonance of the induction system so that it would sound like an angel screaming in a cathedral. The result was a 4.8-liter V10 that could rev from idle to its 9,000. Revline so fast that an analog needle couldn't keep up. It was a triumph of mechanical integrity over electronic artifice. It was a car that felt alive, vibrating with a nervous energy that demanded your absolute attention. It was, in every sense of the word, a formidable achievement. But the world has changed since the last LFA rolled off the line in 2012. We are told that the internal combustion engine is a relic of a bygone age, a smoky dinosaur waiting for the inevitable comet. We are ushered toward a silent digital future where performance is measured in software updates and kilowatt. It is into this sanitized landscape that the LFA II arrives, reportedly carrying a twin turbocharged V8 paired with a hybrid system on paper. It is a concession to the modern era. In practice, it represents a desperate struggle to maintain the dignity of the supercar. When we look at the silhouette of this new contender, as previewed by the electrified sport concept, we see a shift in philosophy. The original LFA was a wedge of technical precision, all sharp intakes and functional vents. This new iteration, however, is a study in proportion and grace. It possesses a long, sweeping bonnet that stretches toward the horizon, a cabin set far back over the rear wheels, and a tail that tapers with the elegance of a 1960s Grand Tourer. It is art, not merely a collection of cool shapes designed to impress a teenager on a smartphone. There is a maturity to the presence of this car. It does not shout, it resonates. The curves are deliberate, flowing from the front arches to the rear haunches, with a continuity that suggests the air itself was used to sculpt the bodywork. In an age where most supercars look like they were designed by an angry architect with a ruler, the Lexus offers a silhouette that values beauty as much as it values downforce. It is a remarkable departure from the aggressive, almost jagged aesthetic that has defined the brand's recent history. However, a beautiful exterior is merely a veneer if the interior fails to respect the occupant. This is where the modern automotive industry often loses its way, and it is where I hold the most skepticism for the LFA II we are currently suffering through a digital malaise. Car manufacturers have decided that because you enjoy using a tablet in your living room, you must want one glued to your dashboard. They bury the climate controls 3 menus deep and replace the tactile satisfaction of a physical switch with a haptic surface that works only half the time and is perpetually covered in fingerprints. For a man who appreciates the mechanical click of a Leica camera or the weighted turn of a high-fidelity volume knob, these screens are an insult. If Lexus is to succeed with the LFA II, they must resist the urge to turn the cockpit into a mobile telephone. I do not want a screen that tells me the weather in Tokyo. I want a tachometer that tells me the truth. I want buttons that are machined from solid billets of aluminum, cold to the touch and precise in their movement. A supercar is a sanctuary of focus. It is a place where the driver should be insulated from the trivialities of the connected world. If I find a submenu for the seat heaters, the car has failed. Reports suggest Lexus is experimenting with a simulated manual transmission for their high-end hybrids, a system with a physical gear lever and a clutch pedal that mimics the mechanical interruptions of a traditional gearbox. To some, this is a gimmick, a digital lie. But perhaps it is a necessary fiction, a way to retain the engagement of the drive in an era of seamless, soulless acceleration. The heart of the matter, of course, is the drive. The original LFA was a visceral experience. It was loud, it was vibratory, and it was demanding. The new car, with its hybrid V8, promises a different kind of performance. We are looking at a projected output of over 700 horsepower. In the old days, that was a terrifying figure. Today, in the world of electric motors, it is merely competitive, but performance is not about the numbers, it is about the delivery. A battery-powered car offers a linear clinical shove that is impressive for the first 5 minutes and tedious for the next 5 years. A V8, particularly one breathed upon by Lexus's engineers, offers a narrative it builds. It has a crescendo. The challenge will be the weight. Batteries are heavy, and weight is the enemy of grace. If the LFA II feels like a lead-lined barge through a corner, no amount of horsepower will save it. We are looking for a car that handles with confidence. A car that communicates through the steering rack exactly what the front tires are doing. It must be able to negotiate a B road with the poise of a dancer, not the brute force of a sledgehammer. And when the road opens up, it must offer the comfort and sovereignty of a true grand tourer. At 70 miles per h-hour on a motorway, a Lexus should be a cathedral of silence, broken only by the distant, muscular thrum of the engine waiting for its moment. It should not crash over potholes or hunt for grip on a damp surface. It should provide the driver with a sense of absolute authority over the road. There is a cynicism that comes with watching the automotive industry for 40 years. I have seen countless brands promise a return to form only to deliver a marketing exercise wrapped in plastic and false promises. I have seen the good old days sold back to us in the form of retro, styling and badge engineering. Is the LFA II another one of these ghosts? Or is it a genuine attempt to build something that will be whispered about in 40 years' time? Lexus has a history of over-engineering their products, to a degree that borders on the pathological. The LS400 from 1989 didn't just compete with Mercedes-Benz, it embarrassed them. It was built with a level of precision that the Germans thought was impossible for a mass-produced car. If that same spirit is applied to the LFA II, we might be looking at a future classic. If they treat the hybrid system not as a fuel-saving measure, but as a performance enhancer that fills the gaps in the torque curve, they could create something truly formidable. They have the resources, they have the technical prowess, and in Akio Toyota, they have a chairman who actually likes cars. But we must be honest about the stakes. The original LFA was a unicorn. It existed in a vacuum, free from the constraints of profitability. The LFA II enters a world that is much more scrutinized. It will be compared to the Ferraris and the McLarens of the world, cars that have been refining the hybrid supercar formula for years. It will be judged by a generation of buyers who value 0 to 60 times above all else. But for the man over 55, the man who remembers the smell of unburnt fuel and the physical effort of a heavy steering rack, those numbers are secondary. We want to know if the car has a soul. We want to know if it makes us feel something other than the G-forces of a digital launch control system. As we look toward 2026, the arrival of this V8 hybrid supercar represents a crossroads for Lexus. They can either build a disposable gadget, a high-tech plaything for the nouveau riche that will be obsolete the moment the next software patch is released, or they can build a mechanical masterpiece. They have the opportunity to prove that the hybrid era doesn't have to be the end of the driver's car, but rather a new chapter in its evolution. My verdict for now remains one of cautious respect. I want this car to be magnificent. I want it to be a riposte to the idea that the modern supercar has become a sanitized, boring experience. I want it to be loud. I want it to be difficult. And I want it to be beautiful. If Lexus delivers a car that values the tactility of the gear shift, the resonance of the V8, and the honesty of the chassis, then it will be a Bowie. For the ages, it will be a car that earns its place in the lineage of the great grand tourers. However, if they give us a car filled with buried menus, fake engine noises, piped through the speakers, and a steering feel that is as disconnected as a video game controller, then it is a pass. We do not need more gadgets. We do not need more hype. We need engineering truth. We need a car that respects the driver enough to let him drive it. The original LFA was a miracle of mechanical obsession. The LFA II has a formidable shadow to step out of. Whether it becomes a legend or merely a footnote in the history of the energy transition depends entirely on whether Lexus has the courage to ignore the focus groups and listen, once again, to the engineers. For 40 years, the internal combustion engine has been the king of the road. With the LFA III, we will see if the king is ready for one last glorious stand, or if he is simply waiting for the lights to go out. We await the result, not with the excitement of a child, but with the steady, critical eye of men who have seen it all before and are waiting to be impressed one last time.